many of your subscribers to Airways? 3, 4, okay, great. How many of you are familiar with Airways? Okay, everybody is. Okay. So I'm the publisher, have been the publisher now for about 2 years. We've been changing up the magazine ever since with the storylines and stuff like that. And we're back in Barnes & Noble. We've got a new YouTube channel. We've got a lot more on Instagram and a brand new website that has all the stories in it. And so if you're a subscriber, you get a digital version. You can go into the website at any time and look at back stories, back issues, and stuff like that. So anyway, give you a little bit of information about Airways. We just celebrated 30 years in existence. It's a commercial aviation focused magazine. When I took over, a little background on me is I'm an ex-airline employee with the Old Frontier Airlines. I was a flight attendant, then I did crew scheduling, and then I did PR. And then left them because I got one over from management, realized that they were clueless. The airline wasn't going to survive deregulation. I quit in 81, they folded in 85. Unfortunately for the reasons that I thought they would. And in 82, I started airlinetravel.com, which is a travel agency aimed towards airline employees. In late 2011, American Airlines came to me and asked me to reopen the employee store at C2 at BFO Airport, which I did that following March, so that's been open now 12 years. We've been open every day of the year. We've been closed one day out of 12 years because we are an employee store, so we're there for the employees. The only time we'll be closed is if the airport's closed, or in the case of the one time that we were closed, I was in Europe and I didn't realize my 2 employees were sick that day that I was flying home. I could have flown home a day early, and we've been open consistently for over 12 years. And then well over 2 years ago, Enrique came to me and we worked out a deal where I purchased Airways. When I did, all the employees thought I was going to fire them, clean house and start all over, and I said, no, you guys are good writers. You just need directions on new stories. So our focus now is on aviation, what goes on at the airlines, personal stories. For instance, we had done a story on a gal I met in the employee store right after COVID, and Cindy was a great lady, first officer, older lady, but had the personality of a pilot who had just got their pilot license. She was just so happy to be flying, and I got to talking to her. She goes, yeah, this is my 2nd trip back. And I said, how long were you off for? 13 years. What were you off for 13 years for? I had breast cancer twice. I was written off by the doctors both times, but I wanted back in the cockpit, so I kept looking for new doctors and new treatments. I beat it, I got my medical back. This is my 2nd trip back. We did a story about her. She actually started out as a nurse, and her dad took her up for an exploratory flight one day, and she enjoyed it so much when they landed, she told her dad, if I do this the rest of my life, I'm happy. And so she quit being a nurse, started taking her flying lessons, and got on with Piedmont. We did another story about a pilot, an American who had passed away. His wife was a friend of mine who worked at Southwest, and so she did the story. It was about how pilots are twice as likely to get skin cancer as European. And after she wrote the story, I went back to her and I said, okay, now what? She goes, what do you mean? I said, you've written the story, it's great. What do I do now? So she added in there about going to your skin care doctor, getting regular checkups. About 10 days after, she mentions her doctor, who is also her husband's doctor. She mentions it in the article. About 10 days after the article ran, she's talking to her doctor, and he thanks her for the article. He goes, how do you know about it? The day before, an American pilot had been in for his first appointment with the magazine open to the article. I know a United pilot in Newark, in fact, it's DJ, Don Gardner, who's one of the exhibitors in there, African-American guy. And he mentioned the same thing that happened to him. He read the article, mentioned it to his captain. The captain said, yeah, he said, I had it right here in my ear. He said, you get checked up every year. So Don gets checked up. So we have no idea how many other pilots understood now the danger and the value of getting checked up, because in at least his husband's case, they found the mole, they removed it, they thought they got it all. This was back in 2000. And then one day during COVID, he was having trouble parking the car at Home Depot. And Lisa had been on him, tried to go to the doctor, she was acting a little strange. Well, this time she went ballistic. And if you know Lisa, that meant you were not going to get out of this. So off to the ER they go, and they can't find anything. They happen to mention the previous mold that had been removed almost 20 years previous. So they did a brain scan, found 8 lesions on his brain. He was dead 2 months later. So we try to bring that to the fact. We do stories about how airlines operate. And our next issue is a story from a ramp guy in Europe. And he talks about what his job is from the moment the plane lands in the evening, turning it around, sending it out the next morning, what all goes on behind the scenes that most people don't realize. We're going to do stories about how the fuel gets from the refinery to the airplane. How do they pick the first class meals and the champagne and the wine? We're going to talk about the various jobs there are at the airlines. There's more than pilot, flight attendant, gate agent, and a mechanic, and a ramp guy. There's meteorologists. There's audio-video people. There's check airmen. What do they have? There's people who manage the fuel, buy the fuel, buy all the paper cups, the coffee cups that are going on the airplane. There's the training of all the crews. There's flight management. How do they pick new routes? I'm like a little kid, who just keeps asking why. So we'll talk to a route specialist. Okay, you're flying 5 times a day between Dallas and Omaha on an A319 and you're running full. What's the decision between adding a 6th flight or bigger airplane? Now, if you're an airline employee, you assume there is none. They're just going to dart on the wall, blindfolded, and that's the new route. But there's actually a thought process. There's actually a convention called routes. And it routes all the airline destinations come. And the airlines come, and they have kind of one-on-one meetings, like a match. And the destination has a complete presentation on why your airline should start service to their airport on what route. And they're supplying you all the information. And if it works, that's the first of about a 3-year process before a route gets announced. So we want to kind of show that type of stuff to everybody. We're doing, David Stringer is our historian. He's an ex-Southern Airlines flight attendant. And so usually in each issue, there's a history story. But we're going to expand that and go into the fantasy life. Okay, so we know there's no wrong answers. But did you know American and Northwest merged back in 1982? And here's what the route looked like. And here's why it worked. What would have happened had Braniff and Delta merged? So we're going to play the what if game. Because if you look at the show, you'll find an A380 with Braniff livery on it. I can assure you that never took place. But had Braniff survived, who knows? They might be playing with it. So we're going to play the little history game with that kind of stuff. So we're looking for writers and photographers. We're going to start doing AvGeek weekends. First one coming up is September 14th in Phoenix. Noel Phillips will be there. Chris, one of our photographers, will be there, who's from Phoenix. He won the best photo at last year's show. He does some great pictures of the tarmac in time-lapse. So you see the lights going down the runways and all this type of stuff. He's going to tell everybody, what's the best places to take photos of Phoenix legally, safely, and all that type of stuff. They're going to have tours of Phoenix, maintenance tours, operations. We're also going to go to Goodyear, see that. We're going to repeat this probably November in Houston. We're talking to Denver, we're talking to Miami, Toulouse, France wants us to come over there and do that. So we're going to give folks who want to get into the photography type of aviation the opportunity to go here, take some cool photos, or take you out by the runways so you can get pictures of the planes landing and taking off up close. We don't smell the rubber as it hits the runway. So if you're interested in those, I've got some information at our at my table. We've got stuff at the website. We also look for writers. We take the younger ones and kind of put them under the wing, show them how to write. The older ones usually have their stories. Like Elise was not a writer, but she had such a great story about her husband and his experience and everything, she wrote a story. So we take those all the time. We're looking for ideas of stories. So we're not just the new route that got started. We'll interview the CEO of the airline or the chief financial officer or the various C-suite people and do stuff like that. And Roberto Lero is my editor. He's out of Leeds, England. Helwing was out of Venezuela. He's now lives in Miami. He does our digital website editing and puts the writers kind of under their wings to show them how we kind of want to do things. We don't deal with speculation. The Lord knows I work at the airport. There's a rumor a day there. And 99% of them are not right. They're just a rumor. And if you're an ex-airline employee, you understand that. There's a little story about Gordon Bethune in some conference with Continental employees, and one of the employees said, Mr. Bethune, I've heard a rumor. He goes, oh boy, how long have you been with the airline? 27 years. He goes, how many times have you heard a rumor to be true? Never. So why are you believing this one? So it's just, we don't deal with that. We're not a gotcha people. We're not 60 Minutes. So we're not out to try to get you, call you a lie or, something like that. We'll talk about something with the airlines once it's become public officially. The FAA does release their report, or something happens of that nature. We won't speculate that we've heard a rumor that some airline's going to merge, or some executive might be leaving the airline, which you guys are keeping up with the airlines. There's all kinds of rumors there about a couple of airlines. CEOs might be made available to industry very soon. Who knows? So we don't deal with that kind of stuff. And that's what Airways Magazine is about. That's where we're taking it. We're going to get into some of the nitty-gritty about how airlines operate. As I told the staff, I want to take the curtain in Oz and pull it back and show how the wizard is pulling the strings and making things operate. Why is your flight late when the weather's perfect, the sun is shining, and you're 2 hours late? What the hell? Why are we late on a day like this? Well, you don't realize that plane started in New York this morning where they had fog. Then it went to Chicago where there was a major thunderstorm. The crew went illegal. They had to replace the crew. Then it came on to Dallas. And now it's 3 hours late and trying to make up time the best they can. So there's a lot that goes into an airline operation that people don't see, don't appreciate, don't know about. It's amazing how many people don't even realize an airline has a meteorologist. They don't have one, they have several. In the Dallas-Fort Worth area, one of them is Rebecca Miller, who used to be the Channel 5 NBC controller. She's now Southwest. I know the guy, American, who does all the, I think retired now, he did all the pilot training videos to the point where the pilots actually made an honorary member of the pilot team. But he did the voiceovers on every pilot training video there was. So a lot of people, young people, you don't realize, that they need security programmers. They need basic computer programmers. They need finance guys, people to calculate the fuel, buy the fuel. Why does an airplane in one case go to a destination and fuel there and fly back, and in another destination will carry the fuel all the way down there and then fly back so that they don't have to buy fuel at that destination? It costs money to haul that fuel all the way there and bring it back, but there's good reasons why that takes place. And we want to in the magazine go into that and explain that and show how that works and what goes on at the airlines. Like I said, how do bags get lost? How do they get found? How do they get back to you if they do? Where do they go when they don't? The questions that I can ask are endless, so my writers are not bored by any means. Sometimes it's a matter of finding the right contact. We did a story about a gentleman who was a NASA space pilot, flew the shuttle, then became a commercial 737 flight officer. And I just wondered, what's it like going from flying the shuttle to being a first officer on a 737? The takeoff is different. And I so wish that the first flight he was on was one of those curmudgeoning old captains who was pissed that he had some new kid in the first officer's seat. Sat there and looked at him and said, so kid, what the hell have you been flying? Space shuttles are, go ahead and take the takeoffs and landings, I'll just watch. What was that like? How did that go? So we look for those. We want to talk to there's a chief pilot in Detroit. She was the first African-American pilot hired by Northwest Airlines. And, what was that like? What has she gone through to get to the chief pilot at Northwest to show the kids and the minority kids that, yeah, you're putting up with junk now, but that's nothing compared to what they did, and yet they still made it. If the kids can see themselves, then they see a path forward. Talk to the first female pilot for a particular airline, the first African-American female pilot, go into all the different firsts and talk to these people and hear their stories and What did they learn? What did they see? What did they go through? Most all of them, when you talk with them, are not bitter. They're not upset. They're just matter of fact, you know, and they're glad they got to where they're at. They blazed the trail, and hopefully that made it easier for the ones that come after them. So they usually have very uplifting stories. They don't sit around at the plane that, you know, I was flying with a bunch of KKK guys. Trust me, I started flying in 1976. The old World War II guys. They were sexist, they were homophobic, and several of them were racist, yes. Felt sorry for the female pilots that we had, because back then when you went in the cockpit, you opened the doors very carefully because you weren't sure what was going to be behind that door. Or in the book. Very interesting photos would be in there because it was all guys. You know, they were very macho. They're darn good pilots, but it was a different time then than what it is now. Those guys would not survive now with the rules and the way things are. But for that time, that was the way it was back then. So we want to hear from these people. You know, what was it like? What obstacles did you face? How did you get here? How did you get there? You know, what's your advice to the ones coming up behind you? Or to others, like in Cindy's case, you know, she wanted to be a pilot so bad she just didn't give up. She kept looking for new doctors, she kept looking for new treatments, traveled all over the country. She pours a church mouse now because she spent every dime she had, but she wanted back in the cockpit, and she made it. And so those are the kind of stories we want to have in the magazine, to highlight, motivate people, inspire people, and also inform. Anybody got questions for me? Yes, ma'am.
Do you guys cover airports too, or just the airliners?
Pardon me?
Do you cover the things that go on at the airports as well, or do you just cover?
Yeah, we covered the opening of the Kansas City airport. We'll cover air traffic controllers, but we'll keep it commercial. We don't do military aircraft, military airports, Navy stuff. We don't do private pilot, Lear jets, anything like that, FlexJet, NetJet.
Yeah, because just a tip for you, LAX is building a whole new international section to their international terminal, and I have found it fascinating because I run along LAX every morning, how they're building the blocks of the terminals, and then I believe it's September, they're on schedule, they're going to put them on these huge crates, and they're going to move over to the Bradley terminal and build them out the gates. It's really fascinating how they're building them.
You know who the first airport was to do that? DFW. The new extension on Terminal C, the high-end gates, were all done modularly and then brought in.
That's what they're doing,
and
yeah.
popped in. And a lot of other airports came in to watch how that was done, because that was the first one that ever been done
Yeah, I'm
that
gonna
way.
be there when they do it. They're gonna do it at 3 o'clock in the morning, they told me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a fascinating story, because I mean, I've watched it start from just a plane, and now they're putting the glass in on each box. It's really fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I said, if you're ever at DFW, you know the high-end number gates at Terminal C.
Yeah, I go there all the time.
That was done that same way, modular, popped in. One day the terminal wasn't there, the next day it was.
I would have never guessed that. I would have thought they would just build it right where it's gonna be. I didn't realize they'd build it a half a mile down the street,
Yeah.
and then they crank them in.
Yeah,
Attach
the trucks
it to
bring it in and pop it in, and next thing you know, you got a terminal. You got more gates. But it's so efficient and inexpensive compared to normal construction, because it doesn't interfere with operations, that I think that's how you're going to see all airports built from now on, where they can. Yes, sir.
What's it like being the head guy? In the old days of newspapers, they had to run their articles through the editor, and it was a high stress.
They run through the editor, they don't run through the...
You're not the editor.
No, I don't micromanage. I'm very bad at that.
What's your editor's experience? Is it still that?
Yeah, Roberto's been doing it for years, so has Helmy, and they have their editorial guidelines they have everybody follow. So there's no copying off somebody else's article from some other website. If you do that, you're fired. There's no speculation, there's no rumor has it. They've got an entire editorial guideline they give the writers and expect the writers to follow it. And then we have a guy who just goes in, looks at the punctuation, make sure you've got the commas and the spelling correct and all that type of stuff. I stay out of that. My job's to market it, sell advertising where we can, or find marketing opportunities, and then come up with story ideas for them, because I'm an ex-airline. Of our entire staff, only one is an airline employee, or was. The rest of them are just ad geeks. So they don't have some of the inside information or ideas that I have. So I'll bring something up about a particular job, like dive, what this is called, we did one, it's tank diver. Anybody here know what a tank diver is? Worst job I can think of at the airline. What you do is you climb inside the wing into the fuel tank and fix leaks. It's usually the smallest, shortest guy on the staff. And you're crawling through a small hole with a lamp on it, which the tank has been emptied, aired out. But you talk about claustrophobic. And you're going inside the fuel tank to repair leaks, and then you weasel your way out of the tank. It's called tank divers. I can't think of a worse job. But that's a job at the airline. Yes?
Long term, how do you see the future of printed publication?
Slowly going away. It'll be supported different ways. People want to read different things different ways. Some want to read it in print, they want the magazine in their hand. Some want it digitally on their iPad. Others want to follow you on YouTube. Others want to follow it on Instagram. So everybody's got their own way they want to receive the information. So as a publication, you've got to do it across all the different channels so that everybody can get it the way they want it. So that's why we put the magazine articles on the website so people can read them digitally. For those that want to do that, we have a digital subscription, we've got a print subscription. Others want the feel of the magazine in their hand, but those tend to be older readers. Now, whether the young ones will go to that as they get older, or whether they go on the iPad, I don't know. I don't think any of us know. I do know that Laura Bush prefers reading on the iPad. You know why? She can make the type as big as she needs. I can't argue with that, especially with my eyes. Make that little 24 type and read it right along. So everybody's different. Some only will subscribe to us and look at our YouTube channel. So we'll try to do the articles in the YouTube format. We just did one on JSX where we interviewed the CEO, and I think that appeared on YouTube, appeared digitally on the website and in the magazine. So I think you've got to do all of the different ways. You just can't do one or you're cutting off part of your readership. And even if it's not one you follow, trust me, Noel Phillips is here. He's got 600,000 followers on YouTube. And you never know what people are going to watch. Noel will probably tell the story if you come to his present. I think he's out there. He'd been doing videos. He was a traveling salesman. Put the video up on the window of the airplane and take a photo. Make a video of it. He got wild hair. He lived in London at the time, and he decided he was going to fly to Australia and video the entire trip. And when he got to Australia, he was going to get off the plane, get back on the plane, fly back to London, and video the entire trip. 32 hours of video. And his wife convinced him that he needed to be in the video to show that this just wasn't a pleasant leisure trip. He needed to show that he was just getting beat to hell going 32 hours on the plane. The video went viral. And that is what was his first big video that did 32 hours looking out the airplane. No commentary, no nothing, just airplane. Which at that height for that long was nothing more than clouds and maybe saw some ocean down below. And people watched it. He said not for a few minutes, they watched it for hours. He couldn't believe it. You never know what your reader wants, so you try different things. And fortunately now with metrics and everything, you know which article got read more, which video got read more. When they were clicking off the video, they were all diving in 3 minutes. Okay, what happened in 3 minutes on the video? That's when everybody's clicking off. This article, they read it for like 3 seconds and they click off. This article, they read it for 2.5 minutes. This article is playing well in Europe, this article is playing well in the US, this article is sucking across all the continent there is. So it really helps you from a writing standpoint, an editorial publisher, to know what the people want. It doesn't matter what you like. It's what they like, and you can tell that from the YouTube videos and from the traffic on your website, what's working and what's not. And a lot of people will ignore that. Even with the emails where we send out our renewals and they're expired, we look at what day we send it, how many opens did we get, what time of day did we send it, what day of the week did we send it. You can pull all those reports if you've got the right email software. And it'll tell you what your open rate is and what time of day they're opening and where they're at when they open it, what continent, what country, and all that type of stuff. You can spend hours and days and weeks delving into all the information you can pull. So you need to know what you want to pull, what do you want to look at, but never assume you know the answer. As in Noel's case, he would have never assumed someone would watch 32 hours of an airplane flying, looking out the window. But they did. He's now got 600,000 subscribers. He has quit his paying job. He now full-time YouTube and makes enough money off that, where they move from Leeds back to Houston, or from Leeds to Houston, not back to Houston, they weren't from there. And all he does is travel, and he pays for all his tickets. None of his tickets are comped. So he's making enough money off YouTube to pay for his tickets, and he's not flying coach. He's flying business or first, fully paid for. Everything else in between is paid for. The house in Houston's paid for. All that type of stuff, just off his YouTube income. All because of a 32-hour look out the window video. And he's constantly experimenting too with different things. He does one's called room review, where he goes in and reviews the bathroom on the airplane. You lost me there, okay? But people want to see what the bathroom in first class looks like. So you give it to him. He probably did it once as a joke, found the views went through the roof, 17,000 views in a day. Well, guess I'll be reviewing more bathrooms. There's Noel's Lou review. But it's amazing when you delve into stuff, what you find out people really want. And then that's what you have to pay attention to as a writer, as a photographer. Which photos, when you share them on Instagram, which ones are getting likes and which ones aren't. That tells you which ones you need to do more of. You do a story, how many people come to it? You're doing a vlog, how many views does it get? How many reads does it get? How many doesn't? Okay, the ones that get the reads, you need to keep doing those. The ones that don't get reads, quit doing it. I know you love it. You really like reviewing the desserts on the airplane, but nobody's reading that article. Okay, he is. Okay, nobody else is. Okay, there was someone over here. Yes.
Yeah, what's the typical experience level or background of most of your writers? You've already kind of talked a little bit about that.
We really don't have one. Like I said, Lisa didn't do any writing, but she was writing from personal experience, so the story ended up being very good. Of course, if you're a technical writer, you need to have some technical background so you understand what the lingo is, what the correct words are in language. But most of ours are not. We're not writing to the technical people. We're writing to the average traveler, the av geek, who may not know what a tank driver is, but they know what that fuel tank is, and they know how roomy it is, and can't imagine themselves climbing in one of those and doing that job. So it all varies, But and when guys starting out, sometimes their articles aren't very good, but Roberto and Helwing will work with them. And hopefully we see improvement. If not, then we got to let them go. But a lot of, I'm a lousy writer. Okay? I speak well sometimes. But I'm a very first person. They laugh at the emails I write. But I write them as I speak. I don't try to polish them up and make them look all slick and stuff like that. That's why I would have been a lousy politician. Because they've got a whole letter here I'm supposed to be reading. And you can see how many times I've looked down at it. I can't do that. I'm on TV a lot. I don't do teleprompter work. I don't follow the teleprompter. I kind of know what we're going to speak about, and so off we go. There was a situation, when 9/11 happened, our NBC affiliate knew that I was next flight attendant. And of course, in the days immediately following, the airline wasn't talking, the union wasn't talking, the government wasn't talking. But I was next flight attendant, so I knew what had happened, I knew why it had happened. So they had me on literally every single broadcast from 5 in the morning till 10 at night, to the point where the security guy would just wave me through. I didn't even badge, nothing, it's come on through, come on through, come on through. And there was one instance where we had a new news director up in the booth who had never dealt with me before. And the reporter, and I had already decided, when I came in, she goes, we talked about that last time. We talked about something else. I said, yeah, let's talk about that. She goes, okay, go, we'll go with it. So we get out there, we sit down, we're doing our interview, and of course we immediately go off the teleprompter. And from what I understand, he had an absolute heart attack in the news booth, because we were not on the teleprompter. And everybody else up there knew me and said, don't worry, we'll throw it back to this when it's fine. And when it was fine, throw it back, and we were fine. Because I had a sense of what the time was like. I'd been on TV enough, it didn't bother me. But if I was getting close and I wasn't paying attention, the deal was the reporter would go like this with their necktie. And of course that wasn't on screen because the camera's on me, so you can't see the reporter going like this. And that was my clue to, wrap it up and shut up. And but he wasn't used to me and was having an absolute conniption because I was not following the teleprompter. But that's not my style, and that's not my writing style, which Helwing and Roberto don't like. So that's why even they, for the most part, well, in every part, they write the editorial letter on the opening. It's usually signed by Roberto, but if it's signed by me, 9 times out of 10, it's always written by Roberto. Just to be honest, it's not my forte. What do you want to do?
Me?
Yeah, you're the youngest one in the room.
Well, I'm interested in writing aviation, so something in that direction is definitely of interest.
So find something you're passionate about so you can research it. There's nothing worse than trying to research something that bores you to death, because you will fall asleep trying to do it. But if you have a passion for it, you'll find yourself still up at 4 in the morning doing a little more research, because once you get on the internet, there's no end. It's going to take you to something else, it's going to take you to something else, to something else, to something else. You may end up writing on something entirely different because the internet is taking you 380 degrees around. But find something you're passionate about. And that goes for anybody. I don't care what you do for work. Find something you're passionate about, and I promise you, you'll never work a day in your life. Noel is passionate about doing the YouTube videos. There's a lot more that goes into that video than just the 15 minutes you see. He has filmed hours, he's done the editing, he's changed the sound, he's done the colors, he's on, but he loves doing that. For him, that's fun. For some of us, that would be just give me a gun, shoot myself. I'm never going to get it right. I don't have a passion for it. And we find our best writers are those that have a passion for aviation, for AVP, for learning about airline operations. They want to know, what do you do with those tires when you're done with them? What do you do with the old parts? Who goes out and buys all the coffee cups? What do you do with the old coffee cups? Who picks the uniforms out? And that's a whole other contention, because the airlines have had issues with the uniforms interacting with bodies and reactions and all that type of stuff. And there's a lot that goes into that. The last one American had, there was a lot of breakout, skin breakouts. And the manufacturer was finding no issues. What the manufacturer was not testing was, how does the uniform react at 40,000 feet in an enclosed environment that's pressurized for an extended period of time? And I don't know the answer to that. I know that's not how they were testing it. They were testing it on the ground. Normal atmosphere, normal ventilation, and everything was fine. But there was too many having reactions to it that you know something had to be off. And the only thing I could come up with was, yeah, okay, take it 40,000 feet in the air, test it for 2 hours in a closed environment basis with pressurized, and what does it show? And they weren't doing that. So there's always situations like that, but if you have a passion for trying to find out the answers, you're going to write a better story. Elisa's story was great, but it was about her husband and their dealings with skin cancer and how it was found and flying and all that type of stuff. Cindy's story was great. I contacted her when I bought the magazine. I met her a couple years before I bought the magazine. So I reached out to her. I remembered her name. It was a common name. And AA, it's first name dot last name at AA.com. So I tried that. And I said, were you the one I happened to meet in the store a couple years ago? And she emailed back. She said, yeah, I was. What can I help you with? And I told her, I said, I want to do a story about you in the magazine. You know, your fight with breast cancer, getting back in the cockpit, all that, silence, which is to be expected. Okay, guys, breast cancer is kind of a personal thing, and here I was asking her to go very public about it. Fortunately for me, her boyfriend at the time was a 7576 captain at Delta, and she told him what I wanted. He goes, Cindy, you've got a story to tell. Let Steve tell it. So she called me up. She said, okay, let's do this. I said, okay, I'm going to send you some questions. I said, then we'll get on the phone, it'll go over that, and I have transcribed and turned it into the article. I said, at any point if I ask you a question that you're not comfortable with, you just say, next question. She was okay. She never did. And so I asked all kinds of questions, some extremely dumb, because I'm a guy, I don't know, what's the right way to ask this, so I just asked. And it turned out to be a really good story. I had a lot of women say that gave them motivation. They were sharing with their sisters or mothers or friends who had breast cancer, saying, look, here's how she dealt with it. Here's what she did, and here's how the outcome was. So it was very inspirational to a lot of those people, which is what I was hoping. But it ended up being a good article. It was very personal. And those tend to be some of the better articles. And everybody's got a story to tell. It's amazing in the store when I talk to employees. We had one come in one day, I got about a month and a half ago. I'm still trying to find her, but I didn't get her name. Done me. I want to do a story about her. She was an elderly African-American lady who was a ramp agent. But in our conversation, she mentioned she just started a couple of years ago. I said, well, what did you do before this? I was an oncology scientist. Excuse me? I said, yeah, I studied cancer and oncology and stuff like that, and I retired. Retirement's not all it's cracked up to be. I want something to keep me active and give me some travel benefits, so I'm out here swinging bags. It's fun. Good for you, but oncology scientist. So yeah, my part-time, I still do volunteer work with pediatricians and look at the slides and stuff like that. Report back to the doctor on what I saw. Who would expect your bag agent is an oncology scientist? And there's all kinds of people like that at the airport. At DFW, on the ramp, is a former NBA player, a former player in the NFL. You just don't know when you're dealing with these people what their background is. And you've got to be curious and ask and show an interest. Because they all have stories, they all want to tell them. And some of them can get really interesting. And that's why I want to find this gal that was the oncology scientist who's a ramp event. And go, I need to talk to you some more. We need a little more of the story to make people appreciate that that's just not a ramp rat on the tarmac. That's someone who's probably smarter than you. Again, personally. But also about the operation. How should we out there swinging? How do they load bags on it? You talk about a game of Tetris. Loading bags on an airplane, getting the weights and balance correct, and getting square bags into a round area. And do it in a short amount of time. That would be an interesting, I don't know if they have the bag loading Olympics. Okay. But get a bunch of airplanes out there and line these teams up and go, okay, who can load these 123 bags into this space in the least amount of time? Go. Be fascinating to see how that worked. Do stories on air traffic controllers. Highly stressful job, and they're passionate about what they do. There's an endless number of stories. The more curious you are, the more passionate you are about it, the easier it is actually to find them and to come up with them. Don't assume anything. Like I said, I knew there had to be a pilot out there that had been an astronaut. And that actually started with a story I was told that happened in Orlando one time. Southwest was doing interviews. Guy sitting there filling out his application. There's an older gentleman sitting next to him. And they get to talking. He goes, so what do you fly, kid? He goes, shuttle. You know, Trump shuttle? He goes, no. NASA, space shuttle. He goes, you're hired. Took the application away. But he was chief pilot. Hired the guy on the spot. Space shuttle pilots probably qualified to fly for Southwest Airlines. That made me think, what's that like going from space shuttle to a commercial airplane? You know, I remember back when I was flying, you could tell which were the Air Force pilots and which were the Navy pilots. The Air Force pilots took off like this. The Navy pilots took off like this. And if you talk to Navy and Air Force guys, yeah, that's how we took off. You take off that carrier, you get up. I can't imagine what the NASA pilot was like. Go straight. No, we take our time. Any other questions?